All righty, welcome everybody to the CNC with Dave show. How's everybody doing tonight? Looks like we've already got a good crowd over there in the chat.
Yep.
Yeah, take a look and see who we got here. We scroll up. We've got Larry Galt. Says he got his cheapo laser today. Excellent, Larry. I'm assuming you're talking about one of the Ox lasers, I guess. Dwight Bennett in the house from Indy. We got Randy Hall in the house tonight. Thomas Grimm from Austin. Landis Stutz from Virginia. Don P. Is also in the house. Let me scroll on down here. Man, we've got a bunch of folks in here already. Dave Matthews from New York, 20 degrees outside. All right. Trace Doss says, Larry, I've been wanting to add a machine too. Mark Lindsay, CNC in the house. How you doing, Mark?
Yeah, Mark.
Let's see.
We also got Alan Lee, Bart Bixel, Dave Kraus, Dave Mitchell, Greg Euler, Greg Hitch, Harry Ragland, Harry's Place, Jared Seymour, Jeff Nearcorn, got it right this time, Jim, Joe Downard, Kevin Ells, Rob Hampton, Ronald Ledger, Wood Bucket, Tim Halcomb, and Troy Pritchard.
All righty.
On the list there.
Good looking.
And more on Facebook.
Bunch. I want to apologize to Joe Downard. He was the winner of the license plate guitar a month ago, about this time in October, the third Saturday. And I have still not got that thing thrown back together, Joe. I apologize, but I will get on it. And I will get it to you. I hadn't forgot about it. I just, if one thing I got to do is I got to dig through those license plates and find the Michigan. So I will get that done and get it sent off to you. We got Paul, Ron. We got all kinds of folks in here. He says, okay, not a problem. Thank you, Joe. I will get it to you. No worries. It took me about a month to get Jim Sinacola sent to him as well. And by the way, the whole show tonight, or most of the show, was going to be with Jim Sinacola doing a presentation about his drag knife and a little pen holder thing, a Sharpie holder or whatever that he made. And I don't know where he is. I don't know if he's taking a nap and didn't wake up or what, but I sent him the link. Hopefully he will join us here in a little bit, but we've got some other stuff to talk about before we get started anyway. And if he's not here by then, we'll just take some questions. But I want to remind everybody, let me get my little banners going over here. I think I've got one here. Yeah, we've got the 2019 Gatton CNC Christmas Challenge coming up. We got Mike joining us here. Welcome.
Hey, Mike.
And Mike's just in time, too, because I wanted to mention and thank the people that have stepped up and offered to help sponsor the challenge. I mentioned, of course, Gatton CNC will be sponsoring some, and Mike Ziegler at Klingspor Woodworking Shop is going to sponsor a prize or two, and Rockler will be a sponsor again this year. And Miter Mike has jumped on the bandwagon, and tell them what you're going to be offering up there, Mike.
Two $50 gift cards to Amazon.
Okay, sweet. That's an awesome prize, and I thank you very much, and I sure do appreciate it. So yeah, so if anybody's, by the way, I know there's a lot of new folks that have asked to join the Gatton CNC Facebook group. So if you are one of those new folks out there in the chat tonight, please type new in the chat and just let me see if there's any of you new fellas out there. But I wanted to explain, if you're just joining us and haven't been watching the show here before, this is your first time here or whatever, the Gatton CNC Christmas Challenge is, well, in fact, I'll just, let me come over here and just do this. Get this ready.
You should do pull-ups, Javi, on the Colossus.
Yeah, I'm telling you. Yeah, but the problem is, if I do pull-ups on the Colossus, the whole thing, I actually could. The whole thing would come down slowly, so it won't be long.
All right, so this is the website page where I'm talking about the Christmas challenge. This is a little paragraph here that kind of explains what it is. It's basically a challenge that's just for CNC people, because a lot of times we are excluded from other challenges. So about 4 years ago, I created this challenge that's just for us CNC people. It can be any kind of a CNC. Doesn't have to be a Gatton or Garage Works. It could be an X-Carve or Laguna or Cam Master, whatever you have. And you can also, it also doesn't have to be a CNC router. It could be a CNC 3D printer. It could be a CNC laser. Pretty much any kind of machine that's CNC controlled. So if you have the whole purpose of it is to get out there and make a Christmas themed project using your CNC. And if you don't have an idea, you can go back and watch. These are links here to the previous 3 years videos that other people made. So it might give you an idea for a project. And then, of course, here's the little rules. We officially start Black Friday, which is November 29th, and it will end, or the deadline, I should say, is by 11:59 p.m. or right before midnight on Christmas Eve, or right before Christmas. So you just shoot a short video, 10 minutes or less, showing the CNC, making your project, and any details you want to add, telling about what you used, what material, and how you did it, and all that is good to show too. So anyway, that's for you new guys that maybe, looks like Jim's going to pop in here. All right. Another thing I wanted to show real quick before we get started is, and I posted this on Facebook, but on the frequently asked questions page, I've added a couple of little drawings. This is just a 3D model of this is the basic Gatton CNC that would be exactly to the plans. And then here I show an overhead view where you can kind of see, this is what I would recommend building your table or cabinet or whatever you're going to do. It would need to be, let's see, what is it, 58 wide by 56 deep. That would get you past the stepper motors and all that. And then this is also to show that you're probably going to need about 24 inches all around the machine. If you build it where it's on casters, you're fine to push it back here. Just make sure you have room, if you do need to get around to the back, that you have room to pull it out, a foot and a half or 2 feet or so. So hopefully that will help some people decide the dimensions of their build. And in here, I'm on this little paragraph, I'm talking about how if you build it as plans, as the plans are called for there, you'll have a cutting area of about 42 by 34. And that's based off of using a 48 by 48 half sheet of plywood as the table. So if you want to make it bigger, you can just add to those dimensions, and you'll know how much bigger you need to make it to do what you want. And also, because I think I said here, For example, if you want to make it where you can cut a 48 by 48, you would need to take the 48 by 48, which is the piece of plywood for the table that the plans call for, and then add 6 inches to the width. And that's a minimum, because you may want to add even more than that depending on how you're planning on clamping things. And a minimum of 14 inches to the depth, because of the gantry you use, or you lose a little bit under 14 inches, but I just rounded it up to 14. But anyway, that's there on the frequently asked questions page, so it may help some folks try to figure out what they're trying to do there. All right. Well, we got Mr. Jim Sinacola in the house now, and he says he's put together a presentation to talk about his drag knife, right?
Yes.
And also, I think you said you had made a pen holder that holds like a Sharpie or something, so that you can use it for testing things. So if nobody has any questions, and let me get the chat back open over here. Let's see.
I don't see any. They're talking about the weather and different things.
Ryan says casters. Well, I know you're still what you're doing right now, Ryan, is still kind of a temporary setup. But I got to tell you, anytime I build anything, I mean anything at all, I put it on casters. Just because when you're dealing in a shop, you get new equipment. It's always nice to be able to roll stuff around, but especially on something heavy like a CNC machine. But don't cheap out on the casters when you go to buy casters, because it needs to be, a good quality caster, and you probably want to make it a locking caster. At least 2 of the 4 casters, like mine, I have locking casters on the front where I can lock them down. So, anyhow, all right. I don't see any questions over there either. Okay. So, let me turn the floor over to Mr. Sinacola, and you can talk about whatever you want to talk about, Jim.
Okay. Thanks, Dave. And sorry I was a little bit late.
No problem.
Well, I think I can go ahead and I'll just share my screen and go from there. Okay. I put together this little presentation here. Like David mentioned, I have built a drag pen. I've also made a drag knife and a 3D printed one. So with that, I'll just kick off. And this very first thing was that I made is this is I made with my new Ox laser. So
Okay, have you shared your screen?
Pardon?
I'm not seeing your shared screen because I keep
really?
I keep waiting for it to come up because I have to click on it too.
Okay, I had well, I did the share screen. It said okay.
I'm not seeing it, because when you share your screen, it will pop up for me to make it active, and I don't see it down below here. I see my shared screen, but I don't see yours down here.
Oh,
so you probably have to go through again, because you have to make sure you click. I think you got to click share screen, and you also have to click entire screen, and then if you have more than one monitor, you have to tell it which one you want to share.
No, I just have one. See, it says share your screen, your entire screen. Okay. Share audio. Application window.
Yeah, I don't see it. It's not coming through here for some reason.
So I have a little screen that came up. It says share your screen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
then you have to click on where it says entire screen, I think it says.
Yep, I got that's lit. Dang.
I can't even remember what it says. I'll turn mine. I'll stop sharing mine and then do it again to see. Yeah, I guess it doesn't say entire screen. That's what it used to say in so you should be able to just click on where it says screen, your screen, when it pops up. You said you just have one screen.
Yes.
If you click on the screen, it should.
Okay.
There you are.
Okay.
There we go.
Got it. Okay. I'm sorry.
No problem.
Okay. Remove. I'm in there. And
You can move that where it says stop sharing, that little window right there. You can grab it and move it out of the way if you need to. There you go.
oh, okay. All right. Sorry.
But now you just need to set your monitor on the screen you were looking for. There you go.
Oh, okay. Well, this is one of my first projects with my Ox laser. So, of course, I made a little thing here.
Mm-hmm.
Here are the two pens, drag pens that I made. The one on the left is made out of cherry wood, and the one on the right was a 3D printed one. And I'll share that information with you. So my very first one is I built the one on the left, and I have a full size Sharpie pen in there, and I've used the Sharpie Ultra Fine on this.
Mm-hmm.
But you can use a larger pen if you want. But it's really funny that if you look at the different pens, they might say fine or ultra fine, and they're all not the same. But if you stay within one brand, you're probably better off. So the one on the right that was 3D printed, I just have a mini in there, but I could have a full size one in there if I wanted it.
Yeah.
And right up here is a spring that you can add to make sure that you have pressure down.
That's what I was going to ask, if there was a spring. That's pretty cool. And you can
This is right here, and it has a stop right there. And on the 3D printed one, the spring is built right into it. So
right.
You can do that. So
which one works better for you, or they both work the same?
They both work pretty much the same. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about the wooden one because that was the very first one that I built there. And here's the parts. There's like 3 parts in here. The block of wood was, scrap wood that I had. It's an inch and a quarter square cherry. You have this 6-inch quarter-inch bolt. You have this locking collar, little bag of springs, and I got a discount on it because I'm a service veteran, and this thing cost me $5.20 at Lowe's.
Wow.
So now if you look on some commercial units that are available, you can spend upwards of $75 to $80 that holds just the pen, one pen at a time, but it holds it directly in your router collar. So some people don't like it because the pen might not be exactly in the center, but I haven't had any problem making it. So the wood one I just cut 2 blocks out of. Here's the 2 pieces. And it's about 1.5-inch square on the left-hand side, and that's where the quarter-inch goes. And on the other side, you can see the hole for the pen. So I just mic'd it and made sure that I had the hole slightly larger than the Sharpie. And here on this side here, there's a screw in there that you can hold the pen in position. And what I do is I just eyeball it that the pen's actually in the same hole.
Did you file down the tip so it wouldn't poke the pen?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I was going to say too. You want to make sure that you don't leave a sharp point on your screw there, because if you screw it in too hard, you're going to puncture the ink reservoir.
My apologies to Miter Mike, but he's ended up on the bottom of the totem pole here, so questions are going to cover him up. But Ryan Ballard is asking, he says, Jim, is there a reason for the angle? I have seen some that are vertical too.
Yes, because well, here I'll just keep going. What it does is, as you put your pen in there, you can adjust the length of the pen so that it will come up into the center of this over here. So
I see. Okay.
Let me go a little bit to the next one here. So here's the piece glued together. So the piece that I'm looking down on the left there.
So you look down through the hole to center the pen.
Yeah,
so it's exactly at the right spot.
The pen's coming down this way, and the steel shaft is coming down this way, but the head's right here. So you can just eyeball when the tip of the pen is just below this hole right here.
Right.
Right. And it really doesn't matter if you're close, and if you're using it, it'll all work out. But if you have it lined up well, then you'll know where it is on your paper.
Now, did you see plans for this somewhere, or is this just something you came up with yourself? And how did you determine the angle for that?
Well, Trevor Vineyard, I think he posted about a year and a half ago. It's been at least that long. And he just had some general guidelines, and then I just went from the picture he had. This is a 30-60, right? So it's a 30 degree here and a 60. It's 60 across here and 30 down here. So, and it just worked out. I guess I lucked out. So the surface that I made the block, you can see that matches up. So when I cut the angle,
yeah, you don't want it straight down because you don't want the pen having shear forces tearing the tip off. So you want it to drag, basically, is the reason for the angle.
Yep.
Makes
so
perfect sense.
It works out pretty good. So okay, here's the completed pen with a Sharpie fine in it. We'll see. I gotta stop this. So I measured here. This is a Porter cable collet here. So if you can look at the top of this part right here.
Mm-hmm.
So from here to the bottom of the pen, it's about 4.5 inches roughly. And if I just go back just a little bit.
Did you leave did you sand down by any chance the top of the or you're just clamping onto the threads?
The bolt is going into the collet. It's a 1/4 inch. I'm using a 1/4 inch collet. So if you see this right here, it goes up into this collet right here.
Gotcha.
And I preload the spring. So this has got a little set collar on it, and I just push it down, and it's a very light spring, but it's pushing this whole unit down. Once you put it on the paper, it keeps pressure of the pen on the paper.
And Todd's asking what keeps it from rotating on the router. I believe you want it to rotate, right, Jim?
Yes, it rotates freely. Do not turn your router on.
It'll rotate really good, Dan.
But what I do to prevent my brain from doing something stupid is I actually turn my router off, so I can't turn it on. So it's quiet. When this thing's running, the only thing you hear are the stepper motors, and it works out great.
Yeah. Yes. In answer to everyone that's asking if it swivels, yes, it. That's why it's a. That's why it's a drag. That's why it's a drag, man. That's why.
It's a drag. As you can see here, it's mounted into my my Gatton CNC. I'm not using a Porter cable anymore. I have a Hitachi, but I got a muscle chuck right here, and this is just a scratch artist pad.
Mm-hmm.
So I just move one piece of paper out. This is a rotary cutting mat that I
That's
got
nice.
from my wife. So
Mhm.
it's a Fiskars. When she cuts it up, because she's a quilter, when she can't use it anymore, then she says, "Do you want this?" I says, "Yeah, sure. That's pretty good." So I just tape the paper down. I then this over here is a piece of wax paper. So I move the wax paper over because I'm gonna make the point right here touch the point here on the paper. But if you use these pens, as soon as the pen touches the paper, ink starts flowing. So you want to put this wax paper over it so you don't have a big bleed out there.
Ah, okay.
That's a good
So,
tip.
so
Yeah,
once
that's
you
a good tip.
so once you start doing that, then what I do is I zero my X and Y, and then I just slowly go down. I put this wax paper over that corner until it touches it.
Yep.
And then once I can't move the wax paper, then I use a control page down to go down a little bit more, and it'll
So it'll do it.
just to engage the pen onto the paper. Then it raises up to an inch, and I hit go, and away it goes.
Yeah, Leroy's. It's an interesting concept. Leroy's was asking if it swivels, and I could tell you, I have right over here. I have my down on the floor here. I have my vinyl cutter, and the blade of the vinyl cutter is It's very similar to that. A professional vinyl cutter, you'll have an angled blade, and it's sitting inside kind of a ball bearing rotary type of thing where the blade can freely turn, and it's only since it's a wedged blade at the very tip as it's pulling along like the drag knife that you're going to show. So the pen is the same thing. If you put it just past center, so it's offset, it'll always pull.
It doesn't. The pen really is on the surface, but when you're using a drag knife, the tip of the drag knife is in the material, so it swivels even more.
Right.
And that's how you do a 90-degree turn. It makes a real sharp little pivot point, a pirouette like.
Right.
And it'll flip around. So if you're going in this direction and you want to go in this direction, the knife will pivot around and then go in that direction.
That's fascinating. I've never used. I mean, I've seen it on vinyl cutters all the time, but that thing's so tiny. I'd never thought it possible for such a large. I mean, a regular carpet knife or something like that. I've never had a carpet knife on a router. I find that incredibly fascinating.
And this doesn't really drag that much because again, it's on the surface, so there isn't really a whole lot.
Not a lot of friction,
right?
Resistance.
So I just hold my mat down. The paper's just glued with masking tape, and then it goes from there.
Mm-hmm. That's a good looking machine, by the way, too, Jim.
It's beautiful, man. I love it.
Yep.
Okay, here's a close up of the tool, and I always, when I get ready to kick out, so I'm at the lower left hand corner, so I swivel this part around here to be the lead, so the pen's dragged away from the corner.
Right.
Okay.
This is my very first
nice
design that I did, and it's just a line drawing. And when you use this Sharpie Ultra Fine pen, that's a 1/64th line. So this line is only 1/64th. Okay. And what I did is I keep all these things in a book, and I'll show you the book when we come back live. But I had the feed right here at 30 inches per minute and the plunge at 10. It's a Sharpie Ultra Fine. And these things are probably 8 inches. And it took 2 minutes and 13 seconds to do. So it's not too bad.
That is cool.
That looks very cool.
That's
And
the things you can do with this. I mean, you can get a charcoal drawing, turn it into vector, and have at it. That's incredible.
the other thing that I found out is it works better with single lines versus the ones where they have the 2 parallel lines. So this was just a single line design. And if it had 2 lines, I would just
convert it to single line. Yeah.
To single line just by deleting one of them. Okay.
Okay, that's very cool.
And then, okay, here's some lettering I did. And this was done.
Oh my God, nightmares of first grade.
But this is a lot easier.
Yeah.
So I just went into my fonts. I used True Type fonts. This top one was just a font. This is more of a box like. This was a script font. These 2 fonts here were single line fonts. And then this bottom one here is like an old English. And this is all done with that pen. And
yeah, and if there's any millennials out there watching, some of this stuff is probably you never seen before. It's called cursive.
Yeah.
Script.
So
Script.
So this is a cursive script right here. And again, this was done with a 1/64th line. So that I measured that with a mic. And here's the, so that's so much for the wooden pen. Of course, the 3D pen is almost the same, except it has the built-in spring. And again, this is a screw that's holding the pen. And that's a full-size pen that's in there right now, but I had some minis in there. And I used only one brand, Sharpie. So if you like a different brand, that's fine, but you might want to check and make sure that you have the right size line, because every pen that says fine is not really fine between makes. So again, I would
Lyle had a quick question, Jim, and I was thinking the same thing. He wants to know what you use the pens for. Do you make patterns, or what was your thought behind wanting to make one of these things?
Well, my thought is that, if you do all that lettering, you could, if you were making a poster sign, this thing can do it really quick, and it's very uniform.
How big a poster can I make?
You can make it as big as your bed. You could tile it too.
We don't need no stinking tiles.
No, you don't.
Harry Von Senior says he's 3D printing one of those right now.
Yeah. Well, okay. I'll continue on right here, and here's the Thingiverse print location for that particular model. Okay. So if you go to Thingiverse and you type this HTTP in there, you'll get that. And luckily, my son-in-law has a small 3D printer, and we're out there visiting last Christmas. He says, "Is there anything I can do for you?" He says, "Yeah, you can 3D print this for me," and he did it. So it turned out pretty cool. And it works the same way. I've used both of them now. But I like the 3D printed one because it's somewhat smaller.
Yeah, but how many wooden ones can you make in the time it takes to print a 3D printed one?
Yeah.
This 3D print, because it was he has a very small unit, so it took hours to print this thing, because we printed it at I think 70 or 80% because I didn't want it to break.
Ooh, there's a good. I'm sorry to interrupt. Michael Castle brings up a very good point. If you use cyan, magenta, yellow, and black markers, you can do a pointillism to make a color image.
Yeah, I haven't tried where I do a little bit of offset yet. I haven't done the multi-pass, but here's the drag knife that I made.
Mm-hmm.
This is a 3D print. This is a standard Stanley knife.
Yep.
You can see that right there. There's two skate bearings in here, one a lower and upper, and this whole unit now will turn. And this is a shaft that sits inside of the collet of the router.
Okay.
And the tip down here will always be inside of the substrate that you're cutting. You could cut leather with this.
Mm-hmm.
You could cut vinyl with this.
Mm-hmm.
And at the whole time, the knife is inside of the material.
Vinyl. Vinyl. Where am I going to find some vinyl to cut?
All right. Now,
Well, you could go down to Joann's and they got that vinyl stuff right there. You
Yeah.
can buy a big sheet of it. It looks like simulated leather. And as you move that, now this one will swivel much more than the drag pen. Okay. And here's, I think I got one more picture. This is just the side of it. So there's a little bracket right here, the back side. And that's all, folks. How about that?
That's
Okay.
fantastic, Jim.
I was looking for, I just went to Google and Amazon and put in drag knife. And of course, the most well-known one I think for CNC folks is probably the Donic knife. And I have a link to their website down below for anybody who wants to just buy one. But they're kind of pricey because it's about, I think
About
they
200 plus.
about $250 or something like that.
Yeah.
You're still sharing, Jim.
Oh, I got another thing I'm going to show.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry about
I
that.
saw the,
Okay.
I saw the
All right.
forever screen.
Okay, so we'll go over here. Whoops.
And that one you showed, that was a 3D printed one, correct? It was.
That is correct.
Okay. Well, go ahead whenever you're ready, Jim. And
Yeah, I was. Okay.
I've already got a couple of ideas in my head now because I've always wanted one of those, and I thought, well, what if I had one? What would I use it for? But it just popped into my head a minute ago, something I could use that knife for.
Shoot. StreamYard. Okay, so I gotta kind of like close my screen down here.
Okay.
Go.
While you're doing that, Michael Thacker says, does your touch point work with the drag knife? And that's another question I was going to have is, could you make a wooden one like Jim did, and maybe a different angle or something, but use those knives that are made for vinyl cutters? Javi, maybe you can answer that one.
I'm sorry, I was answering a question. What was the question?
Well, if you made a wooden one
Mhm.
like what Jim did, but maybe, I don't know whether you might have to make it a different angle or whatever. Could you make one to use some of the small knives?
Exacto knives. Yes. The only thing that you have to pay attention to is the point has to be just offset of center. In other words, if this is the center and this is the angle, it's got to be just past the center by an infinitesimally small amount. Because if not, if it's before, it'll drag the wrong. Basically, you want it to drag the right way.
Yeah, it won't.
You want it to drag away from it. So
Right.
the point of the drag knife is just to the other side of center.
Right.
Okay. And then it's always in the material. And let's see, what else was there? And some of these knives, like the Donic, has a slight angle on the tip. It's not square like a Stanley knife is. Okay.
Mhm.
But I figured I got this one virtually free.
Yeah.
It works pretty good. And as a hobbyist,
And
it does
one
good
of the,
enough for me.
one of the things you should pay attention to, anybody attempting to cut vinyl and stuff with CNC, is there are settings on the V-carve, and I'm sure Mark could help you out with them. Many of us know them, many of us don't, where you can actually tell it on a like a 90-degree curve how far to either go past or just before. Because depending on where you put the knife, you're either going to get a curve in or it's going to go out and in.
Well, luckily, there's you can use if you go to the Donic website, you can actually use their form to fill out and set up your drag knife. And
Perfect.
also, Vectric has a drag knife gadget. So if you're running like V-Carve Pro or any of the Vectrics, you can have it set up. And what the gadget does, it will actually put a swivel, and it literally ends up being a swivel. So
Yep.
it swivels out past the point and changes direction.
If I could see if I can screen share real quick just for a second, Jim, and then we'll get right back
okay.
to it. Just leave yours shared. But while you were talking, I went over to the Donic website, and you can see this one. If you look close, you can see this says Irwin. So it looks like just a pack of
Standard.
regular blades. I mean, for like a box cutter knife.
Yep.
And again, like Javi says, if you look at I should do it over here. Look at like where the center line of this would be. You can see how it's off. This one's off. Looks like quite a bit.
Yeah, but again, the program that you do will compensate for it being off. But
Okay.
you have to have both those things in place, because what happens is if you have it centered, the knife could go anywhere and you could be actually dragging it sideways or opposite. And if you have it past the corner and you don't have the compensation set in V-carve, then it'll always create a curve around the around any sharp corners.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and oh shoot, I kind of lost my train of thought. But anyhow, as that knife goes past, you have to tell it, and I had to actually play with it because I didn't know exactly how far it is. But on a Donic knife, they have like two or three different styles, a D2 and a D4 and all that, and how tight they can cut and everything. Well, they tell you exactly what that drag distance is, and you put it in there. Well, I had to figure it out. So I put one in there, try it. Oh, that's not enough, or it was too much. So it doesn't come free out of the box like the Donic does.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So I was going to flip over to okay. Can you see that, Dave?
Yes.
Okay. Here I am. I started making this pad here, and I'll just show this to you. There's really no sound to it, except there's stepper motors. But this thing here is, I'm going to go big here, and I'm going to go here, and I'm going to click there, and I'm going to speed this up. But okay. So you're going to watch this.
Yep.
And I did this. Hang on just a second. I'm doing this at 30 inches a minute with the 1/64th. And I've also made some changes to my Mach 3 and I don't know if you guys have ever done this, but if you go into the motor tuning, we can talk about that too. But I've increased the velocity to be 100 inches per minute and the acceleration to be 15 inches per second. So that's what I'm using here.
Okay.
And actually, it's made my stepper motors run cooler than what I originally had. I can actually put my hand on there and they just feel warm. And
Right.
And if I didn't have, before I had this tuned in, I
Mhm.
couldn't leave my hand on it if the motors had been on for a half hour. I couldn't even hold my hand on it. It was so hot. So, and again,
Yeah, greater acceleration is better for energy
right.
consumption.
Let's say, and if you run a diamond drag bit, like if you're making acrylic signs, you have to have it different, because if not, you won't be able to make it to the outside of your profile. It'll leave void spots. So let's just.
That is so nice.
So you can see, and it's pretty cool. See, it's not swiveling all over. I mean, when I get to the top, it moves sometimes, and it depends. But that thing is moving pretty cool.
Is it just me, or when I watch this, does anyone else get impressions of robots taking over the world?
That's why I call it a CNC.
It's a beautiful thing.
I mean,
I'm impressed. That's pretty cool.
I love watching it.
So I didn't have a video of the single line designs that I made. The other thing that I couldn't figure out on this is done with a engraving toolpath, a quick engrave.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to select, say, like one line of font, and then it would go like from left to right, I thought. Or you can do the box select where you go from left to right and highlight all these things. But when it does the path, it's jumping all over the map. And I just couldn't figure out how I could just say, like on this bottom one, how do I get it just to go from left to right on that, and then come and do the next one left to right or from right to left. No matter how I selected it, it did something different every time I created the toolpath. So.
Oh, Mark can give you tips on that. It's the toolpath direction, and
you don't have those options in that toolpath.
In which one? In
the quick engrave, you cannot select
quick engrave. Gotcha.
Yeah.
As opposed to yeah. Well.
So I used one where I use a profile path, because some of these things are not closed vectors, like these single lines. These are not closed vectors. So you can't use a V-carve because you need, if you use a V-carve path, you have to have closed vectors.
Close all the vectors. Jim did a video on that.
Yeah, I know. But these single line ones, like the
Mark does videos?
I think so. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
I think it's really just one video. It's just.
Okay, so that's it, folks. So I can.
Excellent. I've just jotted down a sketch of your thing here.
You better give that to Jim, and let him put it on the machine, because I can't read that.
Yeah, it's just pretty. Pretty ragged. I think Jim.
See, if you didn't give away all those 3D printers, you could have 3D printed one, Dave.
Yeah, I'd rather make. Personally, out of the two, I like the wooden one he made. I like it better, but
I agree. That's a really cool tool.
It's such a simple thing, and it's cool. With what you could do with it.
The thing
but
is, I'm sorry, Dave.
No. One thing I was thinking of when he started showing the knife, and it just suddenly popped into my head. I have. Here he comes back.
I'm sorry, I clicked the wrong icon.
Been there, done that, buddy. I do it all the time. But one thing I was thinking of with that knife is, and I've mentioned this before, I think, to Javi, is when I get my GarageWorks parts from the powder coaters, to keep everything from getting scratched up, they'll put like that foamy packaging stuff, and then there's several pieces of I mean, I have got cardboard about 48 by 40, which is a pallet, you know, the size of a pallet. I've got a pile leaned up out there probably this thick. And I thought, well, what could I do with that cardboard? You know, it's good cardboard. I hate to just burn it up or whatever. But if you had one of those knives and you knew how to make a custom box, you could use that to cut the shape of your box, you know, with the tabs and all that kind of stuff.
Vectric's got a gadget for that. Serious. They have a
box
for cutting boxes.
Wow.
Yes.
I did not know that. How come Mark hadn't done a video on that? What's up
Yeah,
with that?
Mark, what's come on.
Okay, here if I could show you, here's another thing. Here is the a pen.
Hold on, let me give you the screen here, Jim. There you go.
Okay, here's a one that's a 1/32, and this was done with my
I see
printed one.
I see the B and the C are missing spots. You got to resurface your spoil board now.
Now, well, I think what happened was I didn't, you know, these little rings up here. It held it held the paper up a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
And the pen might have got the pen was old, so it might have died out.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So what I did
with that spring mechanism, it shouldn't matter how crooked your spoil board is.
Yeah.
Mark says to send them a Donic drag knife, and he'll get right on that box gadget video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hear you. $250 a pop. And that probably doesn't include the blades.
Yeah, I think it includes one or two blades. Then the only other thing in my very first project, because I keep this now in my book, so I keep them all done up here. This is the very first one I did. Okay. So I made some circles, a box, and just a line. And now this one is just a normal Sharpie point, and it's 3/32 wide. So you have to be careful, you know, what you're trying to do with that.
You can't do anything too precise or it'll bleed.
Yeah, well, this is 3/32 wide.
Yeah, that's nice.
And it looks pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think that looks pretty good.
So again, here's my drag knife.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This spins around, and this will move much more than the pen because this tip down here is in the material.
Now you say that, did you 3D print that yourself, or did somebody 3D print it for you?
No, my son-in-law printed it on his printer. So
Okay.
I just went to Thingiverse, and when you get there, you're going to find hundreds of these things, and I just picked one.
Okay.
You know?
Now, when you get the files and stuff from Thingiverse, does it also tell you the hardware that you need?
Yes.
To make that?
Yeah, it told me the drag knife, these little pens, it told about the bearings. See, there's two bearings in there. See them?
Yeah, yeah.
One on the top and one on the bottom. And you have to get the certain size bearings because these guys have this thing done precise. So if they say like an RZ6 or whatever the number is,
Yeah.
you got to have that. You can't just put anyone in there unless you redo the design.
So the plastic piece, basically okay, gotcha. So that the plastic piece shoves into one of the bearings, and
this rod goes only down to
the top plastic piece.
To here, then there's two bearings in here, and then there's another shaft that goes up into the bearings there.
Gotcha.
David Crook has a question. He says, I wanted a laser to cut thin balsa wood for model airplane kits. Think I could do it with your drag knife?
Yes. If you're using like the 16th inch balsa or the very thin stuff that they make model airplanes, this will do it.
Yeah.
But again, you'll have to experiment. So don't just jump in and turn it on and have it work. You're going to have to, number one, I wish I could have, this distance here, this point is behind the center.
Right.
An infinitesimal amount, like, 0.005 or 0.045 or some silly thing like that.
Right.
You have to determine that on these ones that you build yourself. If you get a Donic one, it's all figured out for you, and you could actually use a Donic knife right out of the box.
Mm-hmm.
You just fill in the information in their form, and away you go.
Mm-hmm.
And now another good tutorial is John Hennon did one because he cuts leather, and he uses a knife, but it's a Donic knife to cut leather.
Mm-hmm.
So there we go, guys.
Very nice.
Well, that was quite a presentation. I wasn't expecting all that, but that was a great job, Jim. Thank you so much for sharing all that. And now you've given me some ideas. Like, I want to start off just building a simple wooden one and doing that pin thing, because that right there is.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
It's pretty cool.
I wouldn't mind making a poster or two.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't know, it's fun. This whole machine is fun.
Yeah.
I got a laser, I got a drag knife, I got a drag pen, got the regular CNC machine. So I'm gonna build probably a rotary axis next.
Yep.
Okay. All right, cool. All right. Well, if y'all were listening close, you probably heard my little timer go off there a while ago. So we're almost to an hour here. Has anybody got any questions for Jim about any of the things he's shown tonight, or any questions pretty much period?
Well, Mark had one here. I see. I can find that drag knife for you, Mark. I just have to go back and look in Thingiverse, because, like I say, there's when you go look for drag knives, man, you'll find a ton of them. I think everybody and their brother must have made one.
Greg says you have a Swiss Gatton.
I haven't seen the Patrick's out there in the chat tonight. I'll bet you he would 3D print me one if I wanted.
Oh, yeah. Andrew Haig, too, has a 3D printer.
Yeah. Well, everybody's got a 3D printer but me now, so.
Yeah, you gave yours away.
Well, I didn't give them away, but I got rid of them when.
Well, this is printed on a little machine that only had like a 5.5-inch base, and it was very slow. And he was printing, my son-in-law was printing some snowflakes that they were hanging from their ceiling. And I just asked him, I said, hey, can I have something printed? He said, sure. But it took like overnight.
Well, if you take a bandsaw to the to your pen tool, you take a little bandsaw and make a little slit, it could serve dual purpose, and then you can actually stick a blade in there, put a set screw, and as long as you calibrate it right, you got your drag knife and your pen knife.
Yeah,
I don't know how well
I want two.
Yeah.
Jerry Brown
is nice.
Jerry Brown said he'd make me one if he can stop making all the toys.
Yeah, I put it on the inside chat, the Thingiverse link.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And again, some of these guys, when they say they only do a 35%, man, I wouldn't make one that light. I'm going to go at least 80, maybe 100% fill. There ain't none of this 35% fill.
Well, I've got this Donic one up here again. And you can see that all of this is made from aluminum, which, a Gatton CNC will cut aluminum. So wouldn't be too hard to figure out that part of it. I don't think.
Well, I got a tap and die set.
Yeah.
Metric.
Well, I bet that I made the wooden one pretty fast. It only took me less than an hour to do.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I definitely want to make the wooden one just as a marking thing, a pin thing.
now, Dave, did that get saved so people could go back and look at it and see, like, if they wanted the parts? I got that from Lowe's. I'm sure that Home Depot has it, or Menards, whatever. Because those things are.
Yeah, all that. This will be a video on YouTube for anybody that doesn't catch it live. If you're watching it on the rerun, you'll see everything. But all righty. Well, I guess I don't see any other questions over there. Wait a minute. Landis he says, Dave, have you checked out the collet you bought yet? I just received 2 myself. I haven't run anything since I got them, but I did turn around and order some more of those the collet nut as well. So I'm gonna, in fact, I want to get probably 3 or 4 more of each of the collet and of the nut, and that way I can just keep everything lined up with that already snapped in there with my bits in them, and just change them out that way. But yeah, they look like they're going to work. I don't think, I bought the little cheap $8 ones, and I don't think there's going to be any issue. They look just as good as the ones that came with the spindle originally. So,
Well, the hardest part too for me was I finally found a way to make the presentation. I got Windows 10 and it had a video editor in it. So it took me about 5 or 6 hours to figure that stupid thing out.
Yeah, Jerry says, now that Dave knows how to use collets and nuts, he should be good. Yeah. See, this is an educational show. Even I can learn something. So here we go, talking about nuts again, he says. Yeah. So, all right, we're going to get out of here, guys. Thank you so much, Jim, for
oh, you're welcome.
Presentation.
Thanks for having me.
Miter Mike, thank you again
Very
for
cool.
the sponsor for the challenge. I'm looking forward to some awesome entries. I hope we get a lot of entries this time. In fact, like I said, it starts Black Friday, but anybody that wants to get a head start can go ahead and do it now, and just send me the link after it's official when we start on Black Friday. So I've already seen a couple of people mention that they're starting to work on there. So hopefully we'll get lots of good entries this year. All righty, let me see if I can find the magic button, and we're going to go ahead and get out of here. Again, thanks everybody for watching. We've had an awesome crowd over here. We had dang near 90 people, I think, watching there at one time. So that's pretty good.
Yep.
Thank y'all, and we will see you next week, I guess. And now's the time when we all wave and say good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Dun, 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 dun.
Hit the thumbs up on your way out too, please.